We are here in week 5 of the NFL season in a game against the Houston Texans where the Ravens cannot afford to fall to 1-4.
The season is on the brink if the Ravens don't get these next 2 weeks under their belt as a victory.
Intentions are high as the Ravens look for any answer. We talk about that a lot more coming up on the Locked On Ravens Squad show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad show starts now.
What's going on, Flock Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Ravens Squad Show. I'm your host, Sam Njoku. Joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail. The Ravens fell to the Kansas City Chiefs 37-20. Lots of injuries mounted during that game. Lots of injuries compounded from other injuries throughout the season. And now the Ravens have found themselves in a must-win game against the Houston Texans in week 5. Thank you guys so much for joining us here live here on YouTube. And if you're listening, wherever you get your podcast, thank you for listening as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It's a crazy time to be a Ravens fan. And it's been about a few days since the disaster in Kansas City. Kevin, I want to get your thoughts. How are you feeling now after a few days removed from that big-time loss?
I guess the pure rawness of the loss is kind of worn off at this point, but I can't say I'm feeling too great about the state of the team right now. I mean, look, we can look at it and there are going to be a lot of storylines we talk about in terms of what the Ravens have to do to win. But I mean, look, if they keep playing like they're playing right now, they're not going to win a lot of games moving forward. You have your schedule beginning to open up a tiny bit, and that even is true after the bye week. But, you know, there are a lot of deep-rooted issues with this team. Obviously, the defense is not playing well. Obviously, the coaching situation, it's very tense right now in a lot of different areas. And obviously, the injury situation is not good at all after 2 healthy seasons in 2023 and 2024. I guess the football injury guys said, yeah, enough of that. Back to your regularly scheduled Ravens programming with the injuries. And here we are with, obviously, I know the big one, we're going to talk about it, is Lamar Jackson, as there continue to be updates or not updates about Lamar's status for week 5.
Well, I just think it's about Armageddon. And these next 2 weeks are so pivotal where they'll go into the bye, hopefully with a huge win, a much-needed win against the Houston Texans, and then a critical win that will really set the tone against the Rams because you're going to go up against an upper-tier quarterback. I think the bottom line is that the Ravens defensively have just flat-out struggled against any team that has a competent quarterback that can go through reads and has skill-set players that can make their secondary look average. So this is it. This is the telltale sign whether or not the Ravens can actually get it together, be the team that they hope to be. And, you know, for us, I guess our road trip is going to have to be put on hold because right now it looks like they mother of pearl. This is where we hope and pray they can squeak out something and get into a wild card berth.
And Ravens better not rob me of my steak. I'll tell you that much. I want to go on the road. I want to get that steak. So they need to get it together quickly here.
I want it bad.
Medium rare, Kansas City, bro. We was about to go to a fine establishment, but they're tripping. They are
tripping indeed. Yeah, we're going to get to a lot in this show. Just to let you know, this show is available twice a week, once after the game and once every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also catch the Locked On Ravens podcast with Kevin every day and sometimes on the weekends, depending on the news. And we have certainly got news aplenty, so stay tuned and make sure you're locked into the Locked On Ravens podcast for your Ravens news. This episode, we're going to be touching on what the Ravens need to do to beat the Texans and avoid that 1-4 hole, what John Harbaugh has to do to get this team through it, because all eyes are certainly on the head coach right now. And first and foremost, we have to talk about Lamar Jackson because he is dealing with a hamstring injury. He is for sure the straw that stirs the drink here at M&T Bank Stadium. We don't even know. First we heard 2 to 3 weeks. Now we're hearing week to week. He didn't practice here on Wednesday, along with a gluttony of other superstars that are currently on the mend. Q, I'll start with you. You're routinely at the Castle. You're routinely at the games. What does this injury mean for this Ravens team? Can they count on Cooper Rush to be that guy to lead them if he does, in fact, play in this upcoming contest? What are your thoughts?
So we know this. Lamar Jackson's superpower is his ability to be a dual threat quarterback. We know that in the Cleveland game, with the way the Browns defensive front operated, they somewhat contained Lamar. We know that Lamar looking hesitant to really fully just run and unload and do his thing. We also know going to Kansas City that, man, like you thought he was going to put on the Superman cape and take over, and he did not, to the point where he eventually left the game because of a hamstring. I'm saying that something must have happened in the Buffalo game where he got an injury or something soft tissue-wise slowed him up to the point where by the time we see him in Kansas City, he's like, nope, I'm done. And I think defensive coordinators, Dan Campbell and what they did, obviously Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, what they did, to have a spy on him and just play zone behind as a soft coverage shell, and there really was no adjustments by Todd Monken and or Lamar. Okay, we now know that, you have an injury, you're more likely going to be out. I think for Cooper Rush, the reason why he's on the team is because you're now getting a quarterback that knows he is not a dual threat quarterback. He knows he is not going to be, is having the escapability to extend the play. He's going to be relying upon rhythm and timing. So if the pass rush pressure is coming from the left, he's savvy enough to set the coverage over to the left-hand side, then have the back go out to the right, and now he's his outlet. So if, in fact, he can have everything picked up, great. But if he can't, then he knows he has his back as his outlet, and the play won't go from bad to worse. I think that's what we're seeing with Cooper Rush. Final point, the line play has been so bad that even with Lamar's escapability and or lack thereof because of the injury, he can't even extend enough in the pocket because you got guys either running into each other or phantom blocking, and defenses are having their way with getting to Lamar. Just look at the 7 sacks that was against the Lions, and look at the fiasco of play versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And that's kind of where I was going to go with it too, is that like Lamar does so many things, escaping the pocket and honestly masking poor line play. We've seen it happen over the course of his career. In the preseason, we even saw that Cooper Rush could not do that. And, when a guy like Daniel Faalele, like we saw in the preseason, loses super hard, gets bowled over, Roger Rosengarten hasn't played well, over Andrew Voorhees hasn't played well, Lamar can escape and make something happen. Cooper Rush, just doesn't have that same mobility. Now, Cooper has stepped in the past for quarterbacks. That Dak Prescott, for example, in 2022, I believe he went 4-1 as the starter when Dak was out. And that's the big thing about signing a backup quarterback and giving a backup quarterback as much money that they gave Cooper Rush. They gave him $12 million for 2 years. And that's a big investment considering what they had invested in the position prior. But the goal, and honestly, the hope, is that he steps in and can just keep the season afloat. No one's asking Cooper Rush to go out there and win the Ravens a Super Bowl as the starting quarterback. Obviously that's blasphemy. Lamar is the guy that's going to do that, but Lamar has to come back to a team that's still in position to make a run. I mean, if this team goes 1-5 entering their bye week, you're really starting to, I mean, at that point, I'd probably call the season over, but their schedule opens up in a way that even if Cooper can win one of these next 2 games, assuming Lamar's out, right? This is hypothetically Lamar's out until the bye. We don't know if that's going to be the case yet. We obviously got the updates from Ian Rappaport today that he's going to try to play, so we will see. But even if he comes back, how healthy and how effective is he actually going to be on whatever injury that hamstring is on? I mean, is he going to be 75% Lamar, 60% Lamar, 85% Lamar? We don't know the answer to that question. And, I always kind of defer back to the point that, if the player is out there injured and not being able to be himself, that doesn't help the player and it doesn't help the team, right? Lamar being out there, and you can maybe argue a 85% version of Lamar is better than an 100% version of Cooper Rush, right? I'm sure maybe you could make that argument, but you don't want to have the risk for injury or aggravation or making it worse. If he can't do certain things, he's able to do either throwing or running the football, that's going to hinder the team. So, I don't really want the Ravens to rush Lamar back in this situation. If I was the team, I wouldn't, but we know that Texans defense also was very stout, very good. The Rams, obviously, a good team they have to play in week 6. So the Ravens are stuck between a rock and a hard place right now with this situation. They just got to hope that Lamar is able to just be better and get healthy, right, in this situation. But something's clearly off. The injury's clearly there, and it's something they're going to have to work through.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but also, as you mentioned, they paid this guy $12 million to be a backup quarterback with this very scenario in mind. And I'm asking them to play the rest of the season and push this team to the promised land. They're asking them to win 2 games, one against a 1-3 team with a defense that is stout, but an overall team that has much to be desired. And then the Rams team, obviously, in a different conference that is looking like one of the top 5 teams in the league. So we'll see what this team looks like at that point. But for this game, the expectation should be that Cooper Rush can get the job done because he is, in fact, the backup of backups who got $12 million to come in and step in. Now, do we agree with the notion that Cooper Rush was the right choice, considering that his skill set differs so much so from Lamar Jackson? Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on that because, again, Cooper Rush's skill set, as Q mentioned, he's not going to be asked to run the ball around. He can't extend plays with his legs. He can't run for 50 yards to get a first down. We don't see that from Cooper Rush's game. But that leads to the question, was this signing the right one to make, considering that, Lamar's a dual threat. This offense is predicated on using the quarterback to help the run game go. Cooper Rush won't provide that asset for the Ravens on Sunday if he does play.
Yeah, I would have probably signed someone different personally. Who that is, I don't have a name off the top of my head right now. But, just someone with the ability to kind of mirror the offense a little better. And, John Harbaugh was asked about Tyler Huntley. Obviously, if Lamar's not able to go, Harbaugh made it clear Huntley will be up. That's the obvious answer there and the obvious decision. I wonder if we'll see maybe Tyler Huntley packages in the event Lamar Jackson is not able to go. Could they put him on the field for a couple of plays and maybe have him try to do something there? But you're right. It's going to be a much different offense if Lamar's out there, not just because Lamar is Lamar, but because the skill sets are different. So I would expect a heavy dose of Derrick Henry, short, intermediate throws, probably not trying to push the ball down the field too much in this situation. And something I read out on Locked On Ravens earlier in the week was Derrick Henry against the Texans is actually pretty solid overall. Now with Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are 4-9 without Lamar on the field. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that sometimes, and as a starter, he sat out of games, and that week 18 game against Pittsburgh, or week 17 at that point, I guess, against Pittsburgh, he didn't play in that final game. But Derrick Henry over the course of his career against the Texans, if we just narrow it down to week 5, against the Texans, 280 carries, 1,578 yards, and 13 touchdowns. The last game that we saw Derrick Henry play against Houston was on Christmas Day in Baltimore in the Ravens uniform. He had 27 carries for 147 yards and a touchdown there. There was actually a stretch from 2019 to 2022, 4 games where Derrick Henry had over 200 rushing yards in each of those games. He had 32 for 211 and 3 touchdowns, 22 for 212 and 2 touchdowns, 34 for 250 and 2 touchdowns, 32 for 219 and 2 touchdowns. That's the type of game plan I think you need here for the Ravens is you say, you know what, Derrick, we haven't been running a lot this year, probably not as much as we should have. If I'm John Harbaugh, I'm saying we're putting the team on your back this week. please carry us to a victory. And hopefully the offensive line can also step up to the plate if that's the case as well.
Interesting, because I think backup quarterback play, and you say Tyler Huntley, John brought his name into the equation rather than it was asked. He just kind of mentioned, well, Tyler Huntley too. So I know that you guys are spot on with what your comments are when it comes to Cooper Rush. But when I had a chance to talk to some of the guys in preseason, I think there's a sense of he has his own unique style. And as long as he can, like I said, get himself out of trouble, they don't need, along the lines of what you just said, Kevin, they don't necessarily need him for a long-term suit. They just need him to get through. I think the get through has to be like against an extremely difficult Texans defense and go score to score with a very harsh reality of what the Rams can do offensively. That is going to be the back-to-back before the bye week. So I think, all hands on deck, like everybody. It's interesting. Mark Andrews was saying how, we got guys that are going to, help out and do what we need to do. And that's going to be critical. Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, Bateman, Tez Walker, Tylen Wallace, and just what you said, bro, the big gun, Double Deuce. Like he has to be featured. And if they load up the box to take away Derrick Henry, whatever route combinations, they're not going to be those down the field, extend the play ones that we've been accustomed to seeing from Lamar, but they're going to just be different ones that those guys are going to have to make those style of route plays to keep drives alive and help out Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I think that is going to be one of those things that the Ravens are going to have to lean on. I don't know without Lamar Jackson if they can get the job done long term, but for one game or two games maybe, I think we have what it takes perhaps to get through this. I think that's what Ravens fans are hoping for when we get back. We'll touch on other injuries. It's not just Lamar Jackson is injured. There's a litany of guys that are injured currently for the Ravens, and we have to get in touch and see what these injuries may mean for the Ravens moving forward. We'll touch on it next here on the Ravens Squad Show. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried parlay props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We are back here with the Ravens Squad Show. Again, we're available twice a week, once after every game and once on Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also catch the Locked On Ravens podcast with Kevin Oestreicher every day, including sometimes the weekends, getting your daily dose of Ravens news and everything you need to get ready for the upcoming matchup. Now, the Ravens are beat up. We know that. Ravens fans understand that. Hard to really describe it or really put it into words until you see the injury list. The Ravens had a practice today on Wednesday, and after the practice, the list came out with the injuries. I'm going to read them off to you. It's a pretty long list. I'll try my best to not waste too much time, but boy, the Ravens have themselves a bit of problems. Let's start with the people who did not practice at all. Chidobe Awuzie, Marlon Humphrey, Lamar Jackson, Tyler Linderbaum, Roquan Smith, Pat Ricard, Devontae Walker, and Nate Wiggins, who's out with an elbow injury. Those people did not practice, and for all those in limited action, Kyle Hamilton was added to the injury report with a groin injury. Emory Jones, he's not officially ready to practice yet. I mean, he is practicing, but not ready to play. He has that shoulder injury. Travis Jones dealing with a knee injury. Tyler Linderbaum also added as a limited participant with a calf injury. Brent Urban has a finger injury, and Kyle Vinoy, who's trying to get back from the hamstring injury, was limited as well. So lots of starters, lots of people who are making impacts to the football team, either not practicing or limited in their participation. Q, I'll start with you because you routinely at practice. What is the feel at the facility right now with all those big-time players out? I know we hear a lot of talk about young guys having to step up, but they don't have enough players to step up considering all those injuries of note for the Ravens.
One of the things that we have to say is, are the coaches going to step up? It's interesting because when you have injuries, that's where you can see if Eric Costa and his scouts, John Harbaugh and his coaches can really do what they effectively say they can do. That means scout out talent, and that means coach said talent. Because it's easy when it's Anandi Madubuike, but what are you doing with Aeneas Peebles? What are you doing with some of the other young guys? What are you doing with the young corners? What are you doing with guys that are not quite the talent, although they're in the NFL, so they clearly got skills, or else they wouldn't be there. But there is a difference. And so what schemes, what coaching points, what details are you giving them to help them be the best versions that they can be, so when it's time to go out and play against CJ Stroud and company, that you can effectively play? This is all hands on deck. I mean, that was quite a long list. Those names are no joke of names. And you just can't go out there and just think, oh, we're just going to show up. Texans, they are in a hole themselves. And they're feeling like every 1 and 3 is different. Last week, they're coming off victory, so they're feeling really good compared to the 1 and 3 where you just got mud stomped. That's something that you see when you look at the schedule. And so I think for the Texans, they're feeling like, yeah, we got some momentum. We're going to right this ship. But now, from a bigger picture standpoint, coaching-wise, because even in the Kansas City Chiefs game, there was so many different personnel packages that Zach Orr was doing that was way different than we've seen before. They're trying everything to get to the quarterback. They're trying to pressure. They're trying to have nickel. They're trying to, what is it looking for my D line? What does base look? What is it looking when it's, 3 linebackers and 3 safeties, or 4 corners and 2 safeties, and just multiple looks. So that's a lot of coaching that you got to have when you're talking, when those players that are now in starting roles, you can't oversimplify it, but you certainly can't confuse them by giving them things that they can't handle. Very fine line. This is going to be a critical juncture for John Harbaugh and his staff to see if they are up to the task.
Yeah, I mean, the injury report right now looks like a CVS receipt, and we're back in that territory. I mean, yeah, Q mentioned it. Like, the names are also not just like, oh, these are depth pieces, guys you could do. Like, these are the most important players on the team. A lot of them, essentially. I mean, all of us are going to probably have to suit up there on Sunday, considering, I mean, Sam, I think I got you playing some slot corner. I think you'd make a good linebacker. I think
That's funny.
You have hands, I think, to intercept the ball. Maybe you could play some corner. I don't know if there's another position you might be familiar with. Maybe you could step in and play. I'm not sure. For me, I'm obviously be on the D line. I'm obviously be on the D line with how tall I am, right? Like, so that's where I'm suiting up. I just think, though, with what you have now, and Q made a really good point about just like, it's different players trying to learn terminology and adjusting things. And especially if Lamar's out, that's a whole different conversation. You got to adjust things there too. Like, Q's exactly correct. It's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts, and not really a lot of time to work through it. And it's really like, yes, with the must-win ability that the Ravens have to kind of work with right now, you got to get all that down really quickly because, yes, the Texans struggled through the first 3 weeks of the season, but, last week they beat up on a team they were supposed to beat up on. And now that team that has a really good defense, Nico Collins is coming to town. What's your corner situation look like if you're the Ravens? Sam, I got you in there, so you better step up against Nico. You need to be able to go out there and put a good game together because at this point, you're really working with, those rookies and young guys that the Ravens don't really like to play early on in a season. As the year goes on, usually that's when those rookies start to get more roles, unless there's a clear defined role for someone like a Malaki this year, or, a Patrick Queen, for example, like one of those guys, Linderbaum, like Hamilton. Those are the guys, like those top premier blue chip guys. Those are the ones that get those starting spots as rookies and get a lot of playing time. Other guys in those draft classes don't really get a lot of playing time unless there are situations like these. So it's going to be tough again to go out there and get a win. You have to do it because if you go 1-4, I mean, look, it probably sets up a game for your season against the Rams in week 6.
It certainly does.
Interesting that you say about those starters. I'm just waiting for Malaki Starks to step up and step out because mother of pearl, ever since that opportunity to intercept the Josh Allen pass, like we haven't really seen much of him. Goodness, that this will be a great coming out party and just him dominating.
That's a good point, Q. And I also wanted to bring up not just Malaki Starks, but this has been great for a guy like TJ Tampa. He was the highest graded defender last week against the Chiefs. He is coming to his own. We've seen him play well, but he may have an opportunity where he needs to be the starting corner opposite Jaire Alexander, who hasn't played since week 1. So, I mean, it'll be good to see him and Malaki Starks get in there and do some damage. We've talked about Mike Green, and, he hasn't been the guy that we envision him to be at this point in the season. But again, he's young. He's a rookie. Reps are going to count more than anything right now in the first year. I think Jared Verse won Rookie of the Year. He only had 4.5 sacks. So definitely a lot of time for Malaki Starks and Mike Green to get acclimated to the defense. This is going to be a good time for them to do so, and a much needed time for him to do so. What are your thoughts, Q, about TJ Tampa? You've been a big TJ Tampa guy, and right now he might be the best corner on the football team.
Well, I think, if you look at his playing time, he's definitely stepped in and done a fine job. I know that they're going to be calling upon him. I think the tough part for TJ, the thing is he doesn't have that top end speed, but he's a good range, good size. He's a guy that I think the more he's played, the more he's recognized, okay, I know where, this is my responsibility. These are my keys. This is going to be the route combinations. And he's been effective in that regards. And he's obviously made some key plays when needed. So I think this is a great chance to step in there. Nico Collins and company, they're no joke. But I believe TJ Tampa will be up to the task.
Yeah, he's looked great, and especially obviously last week. I mean, he's someone that I think is going to probably have to play a big role here. Marlon going down, but obviously, Keon Martin also another player that's going to get a huge bump in playing time as well. So, I mean, this for a lot of these young guys is the biggest test of their careers, going in a very high pressure moment, not just for them, but for the organization in general. So, I mean, this is kind of like put up or shut up time for a lot of these guys where, again, it's not going to define their careers, but we'll probably get to learn a little bit about a lot of these young players and kind of, okay, are they there yet? Are they not? What do they need to work on? How's it going to go? Because again, when the expectations of Super Bowl and, we had those conversations in the offseason about how good this roster was on paper, a lot of the talent's on that injury report from Wednesday. So other guys are going to have to step up. That's why it's a team game though, right? That's why you it's all 53. Got to go out there and step up to the plate.
Imagine coming into this season, we thought the only young person that was going to get thrust into action that we were concerned about was Tyler Loop, and he's been automatic from the field goal kicking aspect. So very good job by Tyler Loop. And now these other young guns didn't think they had have an opportunity, now do so and need to step up and step up now, because the Ravens cannot, as you mentioned, afford to fall to that 1-4 hole, because that makes that Rams game a top 5 team in the NFL must win in all aspects. When we come back, we'll touch on the guy who may need to put it all together for the first time in his career, it looks like, at least it feels like that way, John Harbaugh has a huge task ahead of him. His job is on the line, and the job of his coordinator is on the line. Don't mention if the head coach falls, so does the rest of the staff. So big changes could be coming if John Harbaugh can't right the ship. I think we can see it on his face during some press conferences recently that he understands that pressure and might be getting to him a little bit. We touch on it here next on the Ravens Squad Show. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IAHS, top safety pick, and awards than anyone else. As of August 2025, you can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, welcome back to Ravens Squad Show. We are here twice a week, again, as you mentioned, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, after every game, the next one will be on Sunday after the Ravens hopefully beat down the Houston Texans. But for them to do that, Coach Harbaugh will need to get his guys in line. Lots of adversity on his belt. He's probably not used to that. The Ravens have routinely been a great football team, but the expectations are not meeting the results right now, and that's putting head coach John Harbaugh under a lot of fire. You can see how snippy he was doing his press conference today, and pretty much anytime he's had these bad games, he's been snippy, but this one feels a little different. Q, were you at the press conference today? If you were, touch on what happened with John Harbaugh. What are your feeling of the senses with John Harbaugh as he gets ready for probably one of the biggest games of his career here in Week 5?
Full disclosure, no, I wasn't at the Castle today, but obviously saw it from start to finish on here, YouTube channel. And yes, for him, I think it is a classic John Harbaugh type presser where in his mind, he's like, look, I'm trying to move forward with the guys that are out there on the field. But in this particular case, the guys that are not out there on the field are not your usual suspects. Lamar Jackson is not out there on the football field. And so when it was asked to describe what exactly went on with his injury, like when did it first occur in the Kansas City Chiefs game? Because I think I think it was back in Buffalo when he got injured, because he didn't seem right after that. That being said, John was in the mindset of, let's just move forward and stop asking me about these particular injuries, and in particular Lamar Jackson when it was teed up. So he was a little bit short with it, and I think that's something where the local media we're kind of used to that, and then bigger picture wise, I think it just shows that there's that undercurrent of tension for him because of the fact that this team is right now underperforming. Defense is just nowhere near the standard that they talked about it being. Defense is not what it was supposed to be. And offensively, now that you are having your difficulties with that, okay, John Harbaugh, well, you're in the crosshairs of the fan base, and the fan base is like, look, is he the right guy to get us over the hump? I think all that kind of comes into play when John Harbaugh is facing the media and him being a little bit testy, if you will.
Yeah, and it goes and extends beyond just today's press conference, and I'm going to be talking about that a lot tomorrow on Lock the Ravens episode, because I think that there's a lot more nuance to it. But I even want to go back to when he threw Todd Monken under the bus for 2 consecutive days, and then essentially about the defense was like, quote, let's go play some good defense. Like that's essentially what his message was about the defense, where for the offense, it was like, they're not doing this right. They're not doing that right. This is wrong. And again, he's not wrong in that sense. Todd Monken does deserve criticism for some of the personnel choices, play calls, and all that. But as a coach, you just have to go about it differently. You can clearly tell the pressure is getting to him, Q, you were mentioning. And I think, in my opinion, it kind of shows where the organization is at right now. I mean, look, if your head coach is rattled and, he is kind of on edge a little bit. I think the whole team's probably going to be on edge. Like, I think it's a reflection of kind of what's going on in the leadership and the messaging. You can go back to the spoiled comments from Kyle Hamilton and just a lot of things that this is the second straight year that there's been some level of drama with the Ravens. Now, last year, obviously, it was much more like locker room player based with like Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson and Deontay Johnson. But even that's like rare for like what the Ravens usually bring to the table. And then this year, it's a lot of like underhand comments from John Harbaugh. He had one about Kyle Hamilton, I think after week 2, maybe. I think it was week 2 when there was a turnover and he tried to lateral it to Van Noy, and Harbaugh was like, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen or something like that. Like, again, it just feels like he feels the pressure, which apparently he shouldn't be feeling because he doesn't think this is Super Bowl or bust, which I don't know if he truly believes that, but that's what he said publicly. So that's what people are looking at. I feel like as a head coach, you have a responsibility to, one, take accountability, and we don't see that enough from John Harbaugh, in my opinion. I bet we're going to see Todd Monken and Zach Orr go up there tomorrow and take accountability because that's what they do. That's what they have done. Regardless of how bad the defense is playing, Zach Orr would be the first to tell you that. But him saying himself in the defense. Todd Monken, we need to be better as an offense. Himself in that offense is obviously what he's talking about. But for John Harbaugh, it feels like when he says we need to be better, he's not putting himself in that category alongside the people in the organization. At least that's what the feeling is for me. He can clarify on that, maybe, maybe not. But it feels like the pressure is on. Why does it feel that way? Well, because it is. I mean, it absolutely is. And I've been very consistent in saying that if the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl this year, or at least get there at the very minimum, John Harbaugh probably does not coach this Ravens team next season, because you cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. John Harbaugh was incredible early in his career in the playoffs with Joe Flacco. He won a Super Bowl in 2012. But that's just the problem. He won a Super Bowl in 2012. We're in 2025 now. It's been a decade plus, and the Ravens had a tough stretch where they didn't make the postseason. They were kind of in limbo. Obviously, Lamar comes in and changes things around, saves Harbaugh's job, if we're being honest. And now you're in a situation where you've wasted 3 golden opportunities to at least get to, if not win, a Super Bowl in 2019, 2023, and 2024. And you have to take advantage of those because, again, every year in the NFL can look like this, where you're just ravaged with injuries early on, or like in 2021 or 2022 when the Ravens had to deal with that. It's just unfortunate that they weren't able to take advantage of that. And then coming into a year where all of us were saying the Ravens had one of the best, if not the best, rosters in the NFL, to kind of have it go the way that it has been really disappointing. And again, the head coach is the head coach. He's going to get a lot of that blame. He's going to shoulder a lot of that. And it just doesn't feel right to have him kind of pawning some of that off, whether it be on coordinators or players or whatnot. It's not all Harbaugh's fault. I don't want to say that it is. He's not out there tackling guys or throwing interceptions or whatnot. He's not calling the plays, but he has his fingerprints on everything in the organization because he's the head man. And again, when the head coach is rattled, I think the rest of the team is too.
Interesting, because Saad Blitz 34, he's saying John Harbaugh is one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. But when I look at the guy on the sidelines, that's not who I see. He needs to find the coach he used to be. And I don't know, from a coach he used to be aspect, I feel like after McDonald's departure, like his defensive staff was rated. And I don't know if it is a scenario where he lost it, but I don't know if he really fully was able to grab a hold of key pieces for his defense to sustain what they felt was a great defensive staff that really got a hold of a strong core of defensive players. So again, I think from a fan base aspect of things, I think Saad is on point. Like, bruh, you need to get back to what you used to be, whatever that is, and what does that look like to motivate your guys to get it done, especially these next 2 weeks, to get yourself back into the equation of at least the AFC North. Right now, we know the AFC in general it's a long shot, but that AFC North, man, like you cannot allow Pittsburgh to start separating itself.
At all. You can't do it. And I think that, this is the first time since, as you guys mentioned, 2017, that Harbaugh's been under this type of pressure to get the job done. And, he's got some leeway due to injuries in the past. Lamar Jackson's been down and, Tyler Huntley's had to step up. But this is the first time where, regardless of injuries, because the Ravens had Lamar Jackson for 3.5 games now, and this is the result. Where do you think the tipping of the ice would be? Can you see a scenario in which John Harbaugh is fired in the middle of the season? Or do you think Steve Bisciotti is going to give him the grace to at least finish this campaign before maybe making a change, Kevin?
I don't think during the season. I think that if anything, they would fire a coordinator. I think it would be Zach Orr, and then they would make the move on Harbaugh after the season. It would have to get really bad. Not that it isn't already, but it would have to get to catastrophic. People are fighting each other in the locker room. I think that type of level to have him get fired midseason. Now, again, it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. Things could, the vibes could get so bad, and maybe, because this is what I'll say about, moving on from a coach and trying to salvage a season. You need to probably do it earlier rather than later, because if you do it in the pure middle of the season's probably over at that point. There's not really a point if you're trying to save a season that is unsavable. But, let's say they moved on from Harbaugh, if they lose to the Texans and they fire Harbaugh after week 5. There's still time, even however minuscule that chance might be, that coach, whether they promote Monken or do whatever, there's still a chance that they could right that ship. But if they're 2-6 or 2-7 or something, and I don't expect them to be, but I mean, again, the way they're playing, maybe it's not that far out of the realm. If they're along those lines, there's not a big shot at all. There's not a shot you make the postseason from there. So I think that they would fire Orr before Harbaugh, and I think Harbaugh will be an after the season decision. But I don't know. One of the things that John Harbaugh and kind of in his transformation, kind of talking about finding the coach that John Harbaugh used to be in that conversation, John Harbaugh's transformed himself into this player's coach, right? Players want to fight for him, go to battle with him, and play alongside. Well, I mean, Harbaugh not going out on the field, but play with his teams and help him win games, because he's turned himself into that. Well, it feels like something's off, because we see how frustrated, how dejected, how unconfident this team consistently looks so far this season. And, for a guy that's turned himself, and I'll give it to him, he absolutely has turned himself into a player's coach, but that aspect doesn't seem like it's working for him as much this season. And whether it's frustration with Harbaugh, frustration with Monken, frustration with players. I mean, Lamar doesn't look happy out there. Roquan didn't look happy out there before he got hurt. Derrick Henry didn't look happy out there. A lot of these guys don't look happy out there. And, you're not going to win anything when you have vibes that bad. So Harbaugh needs to put on that players coach chat and get those guys back on the same page. And that involves, I think, some hard conversations and some hard changes, probably both of the players and the coaching staff.
D Wiz says we got 5 more division games. Yeah, we do. And all I know is that Cleveland, they're going through their quarterback issues, but their defense is no joke. Cincinnati, thank goodness that they have had their issues. They're trying to find themselves. But I'm telling you, we got to play Pittsburgh twice. Mother of pearl. Wow. We'll see. They're not firing Harbaugh. That's just not the Bisciotti way of doing things. But I do know that this season was supposed to be the special season and all the things. So it will be interesting to see what happens once this season concludes.
It certainly will be. I don't know. I would say I doubt that the Ravens get rid of their head coach in the middle of the season. As you mentioned, that's not Steve Bisciotti. They brought Harbaugh in with the hope that he would retire a Raven. That is still up for grabs. We're not trying to just kick this guy out immediately, but changes need to be made. This team is too stacked, even though half of them are hobbled up right now. Too stacked to lose the way in which they're doing so. They have a chance to bounce back against the Houston Texans. And when we come back, we'll touch on that Houston Texans matchup, because the Ravens do, in fact, have a game to play. And They may have a chance to get it done, but we'll talk about what they need to do to right the ship next here on the Ravens Squad Show. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those along saved me much green every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, guys, we're back here with the Ravens Squad Show. Then we're available twice a week, once after every Ravens game and once on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also catch the Locked On Ravens podcast with KO Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday and Sunday, depending on the outcome, depending on the news source. So make sure you tune in to Locked On for your daily Ravens news source. Also available wherever you get your podcast. So please feel free to give us 5 stars, like and subscribe if you're listening there on YouTube, and make sure you give us a good review. It will really help the channel out as we continue to grow and get to the masses here at Ravens Nation. The Ravens do, in fact, have a game to play. And believe it or not, the Ravens could actually win this football game. Some things will need to go well. We talked about some of it. Kevin, I'll start with you on the offensive side of the ball. What do you think the Ravens need to do to get the W?
Derrick Henry, and some more Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Run this man 30 times and play off of him. He did it in Tennessee for many years with that quarterback situation, Ryan Tannehill and company. And they made an AFC Championship game doing that. So, he's still capable. Look, he hasn't been used a lot this season, so he's probably feeling maybe a little more fresh than he did early in the season for a lot of these years. This is the time. And honestly, it's not the reason they brought in Derrick Henry, but it's a very nice perk when Lamar Jackson potentially doesn't play. And this is, again, assuming Lamar doesn't play. But you have another guy in Derrick Henry that we know can put the team on his back. And I think that's what you have to do. And then, again, if it works to your gain, if it's good, then you can still work play action off of it. You can still make Henry a threat even without Lamar out there. I mean, the thing that you lose with Lamar not being out there is teams aren't going to necessarily, they can stack the box against Derrick Henry. You can't really do that against Lamar and Derrick Henry because there are so many other problems that they present. You don't have to worry for the Texans defense about some of the option plays and, misdirections and all the crazy stuff that Lamar brings to the table there. But if Henry still does a really good job running the football and the Ravens do a good job running the football, teams are going to have to start stacking the box even further, which means, again, I would maybe think a big Mark Andrews game. I think Isaiah Likely is going to get more work this week than he did last week. I think last week was kind of the welcome back game, which means not a lot of snaps, not a lot of playing time. But in my opinion, this is the week you need to lean on Derrick Henry. It just is. The Texans is a team right now defensively. We know how good they are and a lot of things that they bring to the table. But as a rush defense, they're just middling. They're 18th in the league in yards per attempt given up. Meanwhile, it's their pass defense that's top 5 in the league right now. So I would try to exploit that if I were the Ravens and just Derrick Henry, and then get some Keaton Mitchell in there too.
Yes, please.
But I hear you. It's interesting. I'm like what Goman was saying. Who's going to be blocking for him? What is up with this O-line issue that we have been having? That's the real big problem. It's not that Derrick Henry can't do it. If Derrick Henry can get to the second level, possibly even the third level, then we good. Derrick Henry. But I think even when Lamar was in there, and that was one of the issues, is that he had trouble with the way our offensive line had been on this roller coaster ride of we're going to block for you, we're not going to block for you. We're going to block for you, not going to block for you. Which then you got Monken bringing in different personnel packages, and then it becomes, hey, if we trick things up, then we'll fool the defense. But then the defense is like, but y'all suck on the offensive line. We whooping y'all regardless. Like, so we can Derrick Henry all we want. We can get the ball out of Cooper Rush's hands and get it into skilled players all we want. Means nothing if we don't do what we're supposed to do. And what I mean by they, meaning the offensive line, has to do its job effectively, or else this is all for naught.
The trenches will be telling the story in this game. I agree with both of you guys for sure. Speaking of trenches, the Ravens also have to stop CJ Stroud, stop Nick Chubb. How do you see this playing out, Q? The Ravens defense, looks like the entire defensive line is out with injury. Cavanaugh may be coming back. He was limited today. We'll see how it goes the rest of the week. But how do you see this defense attacking this offense who, may not be, showing much in terms of points, but they did put up 30, I believe, against the Titans, and they do have CJ Stroud, who was a rookie phenomenon a couple of years back.
Well, CJ Stroud has had his ups and downs, and he certainly has looking to bounce back this season. And they kind of, like I said, they had, their issues. Didn't really start off as fast as they wanted to. They like to push the ball down the field. Nico Collins is a beast. You talk about Nick Chubb, and he's been a Raven killer when he was with the Cleveland Browns. So I know he's going to be like, I'm looking at this tape. I'm licking my chops. They got a young running back. His name slips my mind, but I think he's going to be a handful. So without the defensive front, like if I'm looking at this Ravens team, D'Amico Ryans and company, they're like, oh, we're just going to be physical at the point of attack, control the clock, allow Nico Collins to take advantage of the secondary when it presents itself. The Ravens, they play a lot of man-to-man, but they have struggled with it. And bottom line, that's the recipe for winning. That's what the Ravens need to do to keep the ball away from the Texans. But unfortunately, when you look at what the Texans are doing, they got all their pieces in order, whereas the Ravens, we don't see it. Not the offensive line, you just don't see it. And that Texans defensive front is very formidable. So offensively, Ravens defense is going to have to figure out how to stop the run and man up and let's get it done. Zach Orr and company, they're going to have their hands full with that task.
There we go. This team needs to be a lot better, in my opinion, at conversions. Conversions. This is where I'm looking, because we can talk about and Q a lot of good points about how this Ravens team is going to maybe pull out a win, how they need to play to pull out a win, what they cannot do to pull out a win. But in my opinion, you look at the conversion rates, the Ravens right now are the 28th best, so they're 28th in the league on defense at giving up red zone percentage looks. Fourth down, they're 27th in the league on defense, giving up 81.8% of those opportunities, which is just, you can't have that. Third down, they're 24th in the league on defense, 41.9%. And even on offense, they're middling. Third down, they're not terrible. They're 12th on third down on offense. But again, what does that look like if Lamar's not out there and Cooper Rush is on the field? In the red zone, they're 19th in the league on offense there. Fourth down, they're not good. They're 28th, but the Ravens had to go for it a lot on fourth down in week 4. So I guess maybe that skews that a little bit. But they need to be able, if we're being honest, to just slop this game up as much as possible. Like it's how you beat the Ravens when they're full strength. How do you beat the Ravens? You slop the game up. And I think for the Ravens, they're not at full strength. They're missing a lot of guys. They just need to slop the game up. And look, if you're not going to get pressure on the Texans and CJ Stroud with that offensive line that they're throwing out there, you're not getting pressure on anybody. Like, we can just call it what it is. I said it all week, and I agree with anybody else who's saying it, because that offensive line is horrendous. In my opinion, it's the worst offensive line in the league. And if you can't get pressure on CJ Stroud, even if you don't have guys like Matabike and Van Noy and Jones, and hopefully, obviously, Jones and Van Noy are back for this game, but if you can't get pressure, you're in a really, really bad spot. So CJ Stroud, force him to make quick decisions, make him speed up that internal clock a little bit. Yep, for sure. And I think if you do that, you'll have a decent shot to win this game. But man, I mean, injuries lower your ceiling and lower your floor. And what was once a promising on paper roster has become again a CVS receipt with a bajillion guys. And I actually just ran the numbers right here. The Ravens right now on their active roster have 25% of their 53-man roster on their injury report for week number 5. And that's not including the 9 other players Baltimore has on injured reserve or other injured lists. So through the first month of the season, 22 players are injured in some way, shape, or form, which is just crazy considering how much we talked about their depth, and it's already being tested in probably the biggest way it can through a month of the season.
Eric DeCosta is going to have his work cut out for him. This is the depth. Go ahead, Q.
No, I'm just looking at our comments and I am cracking up because, yes, moving the chains it's critical. I think that unfortunately, when Lamar was in there, the ability to move the chains, it's in his nature to take those shots, those big plays down the football field. And in doing so, that's where the breakdown came in from an offensive line standpoint. And so it snowballed against them. At the same time, when you look at Cooper Rush, I think it is imperative that, they run the ball, stay on schedule, but allow his veteran savvy to hopefully get the line in the right position and make the right calls and get the ball out of your hands and get it to your playmakers, and there's some strong run after catch capability. Yes, there is a phantom on that offensive line, and yes, we need to get rid of that phantom very quickly.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say about
that. We will see what happens for sure. We got a few minutes left before we close out the show. Before I let you guys go, I want a score prediction in this game, and maybe one player who you think needs to show up, and that player cannot be Derrick Henry. Kevin, I'll start with you.
Fine. All right. No Derrick Henry. I you know what? I'll go bold because there's not even a chance that there's maybe a shot this guy's active. I'm going to go with Keaton Mitchell. I'm going to say Keaton Mitchell gets activated and Keaton Mitchell makes an immediate impact. And everybody, once he's doing it, says, see, this is what they were missing. This is why he should have been active. And so whether that's him in the pass game, you can scheme up some plays for him, or in the run game, I'm going to say Keaton makes an impact in this game. Man, I mean, this is about as must win as you can get. The only other must win that would be more must win is if they lose this game and then play the Rams in week 6. That'd be the most, but 28-27 Ravens. I'm just going to do it. 28-27 Ravens. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. 28-27 Ravens. That's all I got. 28-27 Ravens.
I mean, I'm saying Tyler Loop. I think this is one of those classic back in the day Matt Stover / Justin Tucker type performances that we're going to see from Tyler Loop. I think that, buddy, Malaki Starks and Tyler Loop. Malaki Starks, Tyler Loop, and Voorhees. Malaki Starks, Tyler Loop, Voorhees, and Buchanan. Malaki Starks, Tyler Loop, Buchanan, Voorhees, and mother of Pearl. Can Isaiah Likely just come and spark the heck out of the Ravens offense? That's all. Let's get a score. I don't know. They got a high score. We'll say similar to Kevin, 24-20 Ravens, and it's a scooping score to win the game.
I like it. I like it a lot. I got the Ravens winning 24-21. Game-winning field goal by Tyler Loop at M&T Bank Stadium for the first time. I like it like that. But if the Ravens don't win, lots of questions are going to be thrown out away. So hopefully the Ravens get the job done. I think they will. I think they get this job done. We'll see what happens. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us here at the Ravens Squad Show. We will be back at post-game after the Ravens finish their game against the Houston Texans. Hope you guys tune in. Again, be sure to like and subscribe here over at YouTube. If you're listening, wherever you're listening to your podcast, please be sure to give us 5 stars and leave a comment. It'll really help the show out as we grow. And tell a friend. that doesn't know about the show that's a Ravens fan, definitely get them in on the Raven Squad action. Again, thank you so much for joining us. For myself, Kevin, and Kadri, I appreciate you so much for joining us, and we will see you on Sunday.